Good afternoon guys, another beautiful day in the woods. This is Dave at Out There Bushcraft. Just wanted to show you a technique that I use for sharpening my knife. Now I should say at the start really that I've tried lots of different techniques for sharpening my knife. This is the one I tend to come back to. I had been using a technique just recently which was a technique that is recommended on the Falk Kniving site, and Falk Kniving are the people who make the sharpening stone that I use for sharpening in the field. This is the Falk Kniving DC4, diamond on one side for taking a lot of the metal off a blade if you need to, ceramic on the other, diamond and ceramic, hence DC. Generally speaking, you'll only need to use the ceramic side just for sharpening up your blade. If you have any epics and you need to take, maybe you've damaged the blade and you need to take a little bit more off, then you might use this other side. But it's the same technique both sides. Generally speaking, recently I've been using the technique whereby I close the gap between the blade and the stone. So you can see the black gap there. Close the gap and then work in little circles like this all the way up the blade, and that's a really effective way to work. But actually I've kind of come back to a technique I've been using for a while, which I just think is a useful technique to use. So all I do then, I find myself a reasonably flexible piece of wood. I measure up a notch slightly smaller than my Falk Kniving, and then I work to wedge it in. Sometimes I need to flex the wood just to kind of open the space up a little bit that I've created, and then jam the Falk Kniving DC4 in there so it's stuck in that gap, and then that's the way I work with it. Okay, so from this point, what I tend to do, I have the Falk Kniving stone on the branch. I have it on the outside of my body, because I'm working with a knife and I prefer to work with a knife on the outside of my body. And all I'm going to do from this point then is put the knife onto the stone, tilt it forward so it's in position. Now this is a Scandi grind. Scandi grind is just a single bevel on the blade, and that's a much better setup than a secondary bevel that you sometimes see on knives. For a knife where you're working in the woods and you're going to need to sharpen it up while you're out there, this is a much better way to go. So all I'm going to do is put the knife in position, angle it down so that it's in contact. I'll just move this hand out the way, but usually I would steady with the other hand. So all I'm doing is just angling it down and then pushing down as if I'm slicing the top off the sharpening stone, and then work the entire blade. Okay, when I get to the tip, I'm going to need to tilt it back a little bit more and a little bit more. So all I'm doing now is I'm watching this edge to make sure I've got it in really close, and then I'm just pushing, and that's the way that I'll sharpen the knife. Okay, so I'm constantly pushing down the stone, keeping that angle right, tilting it slightly more as I get towards the tip, and then taking it back the other way. So again, in this position, what I'm doing is blade flat on, tilt it forward, hold the knife in place, and then I'm pulling. The cutting direction is towards the top of the stick now. Okay, it's perfectly safe because I'm doing it in a very controlled manner. And then as I work towards the tip of the blade, I'm just angling things. I'll do it one-handed, but I don't usually. I'll angle it up like that, so you can see I'm constantly angling up because of the shape of the blade, to ensure that I keep the bevel flat against the stone. Now some people will tell you that you need to wet the Falk Kniving stone. The actual company that manufacture them don't say that that's necessary. Usually for me, typically I'll have already washed my stone before I start with a little bit of water, so it will usually be damp. But that's a choice that you'll come to. The advantage of using water on it is you will create a slurry and the slurry can help to polish the blade a little bit. So the slurry will be created by your spit or the water that you've put on, and the fine little bits of metal that are being scraped off the knife blade will create that a kind of abrasive slurry, which will help you to keep your knife polished as you go. Okay, so there you go, up and down that way, turn it over, same the other way. Typically if I do 20 this way, I do 20 that way, and then I might finish off with just lighter strokes, maybe 10 in that direction, and then 10 in that direction. But I make sure I do the same amount on both sides, so I don't end up with a blade that is the sharp edge is offset to the left or the right, because my sharpening technique hasn't been too good. So there you can see that obviously I haven't taken you through the whole process. That's really just to kind of demonstrate how it works, but that's a pretty sharp blade. I can check it out in the sunlight and I can see any tiny little stars that appear. There's one there which tells me I haven't quite finished sharpening. That's where there's a little burr perhaps on the blade that's shining like a little star when the sun shines on it, and that's a sign that I've still got a little bit of work to do. Okay, so I'll just have another go at that, just to make sure I get that as sharp as I can get it. And it's really important to get that kind of sharpness across the whole length of the blade, because we use different parts of the blade for different things, but when we need them, then we need them sharp. Okay, so I'm always going to make sure this end of the blade is sharp, because I do a lot of work like making feather sticks with that end. But I'm also going to need to make sure that the tip is sharp, so if I'm whittling anything, the knife is safe to use. Remember, we always say that a sharp knife is a safe knife. It takes less effort to use, less likelihood of a slip. Okay, so I can now inspect that in the sunlight again, and it's looking better. I'm not going to worry about it too much. You know, sometimes people get really kind of freaked out about getting it perfect every time, but it's a working tool, and I'm not performing surgery with it. So the odd little speckle that suggests there's a tiny little burr somewhere I've missed, I'm not going to lose too much sleep over it. But there you go, there's a really simple technique using the fork knife and wedged into a stick, a good way of sharpening your blade. And actually, although I have seen techniques that people say are better for beginners, I think my findings would suggest, for me anyway, I think this is the better technique for beginners. Okay, so there you go. Next time you're out there and your blade is getting a little bit blunt, there's a way that you can sharpen your blade really safely. Okay, thanks for watching. See you again soon.